Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the afternoon workshop that is about teamwork, and so if you're in the right place and this is what you want to be hearing, that's great. If you're not, this will be the time to move on to the right place. Otherwise, Greg gets his feelings hurt if people walk out in the middle of things, and I'm very insecure, so it'll just wreck me, but that's okay. We're really glad that you're here. I'd like to open us with a word of prayer, and then we'll get after it and talk a little bit about teamwork. Father, we thank you as you bring us together this afternoon. We pray your continued blessing upon our conference time together. Best practices are really expressions of your grace and goodness and your wisdom breaking out among us, and so even to be at a place like this one, we acknowledge apart from you, there is no best practice. So we thank you, praise you, and love you as you gather us together in this time of learning and growth. And we pray your blessing as we ask this in Jesus' strong and precious name. Amen. Amen. So we're talking about teamwork, and let me just kind of get a little feel for what this is all about. In my experience as being a part of a team, and I've been connected to some kind of a team for almost all of my life, whether it's a softball team or a soccer team or a family or having a job in a company and you're part of a construction team, or you're part of you're part of a team that sacks the groceries at the grocery store. That was my first job. Or whether you're part of a church staff, there is that multiplicity and that complexity that is team. Different personalities kind of merging together. And so an assumption that I want to make as we start off is that when teams are having difficulty, when team goes bad, the issues and the difficulties that it creates are exponentially larger than the sum of its parts. In other words, it takes a lot of work and energy when things aren't going well just to get some things done and to kind of walk through the field of landmines and not get blown up as you're going through it, okay? So that's one of the assumptions. Conversely, assumption number 2, I believe, is also true. That when teams are going well, when things are excellent, when people are working together in harmony, the end result is always greater than the sum of its parts, so that it's exponentially wonderful. It's energizing. It's terrific. So that when you're thinking about team, it's never 1 + 1 = 2. It's more like 1 + 1 can equal 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, depending upon the circumstance and the health and life of the team. So we're talking about something that's really significantly important and is a great investment of time and energy. And let me kind of introduce this by saying, when I first got into the ministry, we were in a small church out in West Texas, and we had a team. The team that sort of led the church was myself as the full-time worker. There was a part-time secretary. She had a lot of influence and was very important in terms of how we do plugging her in and that kind of stuff, moving things forward. And there were three elders that kind of formed our team. And so there was, even though we weren't talking about a large staff of people, we were talking about a team. I'm now at Concordia Lutheran Church in San Antonio, and Greg, I don't know how many people are on the team, but there's like
over 200.
Over 200 people that would be full-time, part-time that are part of the team. I go to one meeting a month, and that's at night, and that's with the elders, and the elders group is over 200. So when you start talking about how many people are on your team, I mean, it is amazingly complex. But it is a delightful thing because the team is a team that is healthy and focused, and frankly, by the grace of God, I can say this because I've contributed minusculely to the team. I haven't been there that long. My prayer when I got into Concordia was, Lord, don't only screw this whole thing up for these nice people. And that's kind of, if we don't lose ground, I consider it a good day, in terms of my participation on the team. But the fact of the matter is that what I'm saying to you is that I've worked with very small situations and very, very large ones. Here's what it was like when we began to seriously consider what team ministry was about. I had well-intended elders who came to me and said, Pastor, you seem to be very busy all the time. Why don't we get you some help? Let's put someone on staff part-time to help you with some of the things that you need to get done. And you know what? If people have ever said that to you, that is a lie. Adding people to a team situation is not about making life less complex and less demanding and rearranging tasks so that I would have less to do. I just have different to do. That's the thing. And a part of what is important for me as a leader on a team and as a person of influence in both large and small kind of situations is to recognize that I may be busier than I've ever been working with other people, working with a team, and trying to accomplish some very important things. I want to introduce Greg Stiles here. Greg and I are on the team together at Concordia, and he's going to be speaking a little bit later, but it's my privilege to kind of introduce this to say, and I'm borrowing a little phrase here from John Maxwell, who says, teamwork makes the dream work. And I just want to share two things with you as a way of kind of introducing you to some things that Greg is going to be sharing that are nuts and bolts and good points of consideration in terms of how do we build strong teams? How do we create health among the teams that we have? And the introduction that I want to bring to you is two thoughts. Number one is healthy teams, strong teams, productive teams, high-performance teams will have these two things as a part of their description. Number one is team alignment to these three pieces. Number one is mission, number two is culture, and number three is evaluation. Great teams understand their mission. Now, I've done some work as a chaplain with professional sports teams, so occasionally I'm sort of going to do an entrance and exit and things like that into what I've learned from other kinds of, from coaches and people who play on teams for a living, as a part of their calling in life. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago by listening to the head coach of a soccer team in Dallas was simply this: teams perform best when everyone understands the mission, what it is that we're setting out to accomplish. And in the context of that philosophy of coaching a team, it was easy to take what we were thinking about in a locker room and transition that into a church boardroom. Very, very easy. Think about that. Everyone understands the mission. Now that does a couple of things when there's clarity about that. Number one, it will attract certain people to you. Number two, it will help other people understand that perhaps that it's time to find another spot. Does that make sense? And I want to say that as graciously as possible, because alongside this, my buddy, who was the coach of this professional soccer team, would come along next and he would say things like this: no individual is greater than the team. This team that won a number of championships while he was coaching in Dallas also had the occasion, on two occasions, to trade away some very productive all-star kind of names to the soccer team. And the reason was because the coach wanted to make sure that the team understood that no individual is more important than the team. That speaks into this business of owning mission. It speaks into the attitude toward mission. It speaks into the role of how we accomplish this mission. Teamwork makes the dream work. And it's the only way that you begin to step into that which is exponential in terms of impact, when you're able to multiply that through others. Okay, does that make sense? So we're talking about alignment to mission as a first point. Clarity about mission. Number two is the culture of the team. Every team has a culture. A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Tucker was speaking I don't even remember where it was, but he asked me to come up front. He said, Steve, share some observations about our staff, our team here at Concordia. And so I was a little bit unprepared, but I did have some observations about the team at Concordia. And they were observations that were easy for me to identify because they were different than what I was used to, okay? One of the things that we talked about was the collaboration on the team. It's clearly, and if you've been at any of the other Concordia presentations, you've probably heard them talk about collaboration as a value. So that's one of the things that the team values. So when you get to Concordia on the second floor of the administration building where the executive teams are, you seldom find a door that's closed. Seldom find a door that's closed. From the senior pastor through the chief of staff, all the way down. Greg will talk a little bit more about why that door is always open later. But and in part, it's because we're always inviting people in. We sort of live with this philosophy that says none of us is as smart as all of us, and by the way, I want to invite you in. Now, it took me a little bit of time to sort of adjust to that because it's sort of like getting into the rhythm and into the flow of things because I wasn't used to that. I didn't practice a closed door policy when I was a senior pastor of a church or when I was the executive leader at PLI and things like that. But I found that I actually closed my door more often than I would and do now at Concordia because it's that closed door said I haven't quite figured out the value here just yet. The other thing that I was able to share as Bill asked me to speak about team is that there's no silos on this team. There's no silos on this team. There are times, and Greg will talk about this in detail, all hands on deck. That makes all sense in the world to me. But one of the ways that I discovered that there's no silos here is that as I came on staff in Concordia, I said, okay, help me understand what the expectations are. Help me understand what my position requires of me. Do you have a job description in writing? And I'm still waiting for one. But I'm as busy as I can be. Because what I figured out is a part of what we do is supporting one another and the place of communication. And in some broad strokes, there is clarity. I don't want you to think poorly about that. There is clarity. But one of the things I never think about is whether this is in my job description. I can tell you one of the things that breaks my heart is when I'm talking to people on a church staff and somebody says, but that's not in my job description. And some of you I know have heard that before. So that's a part of the culture at Concordia that we think about that. Can we align ourselves to that? Can we align ourselves to a place that gives mutual support, where the lines of task are often blurred, and where most people, when they leave, before they leave the building on the day, will come walking by your office and say, Steve, is there anything I can do for you before I go home? And you know what? I seldom have an answer for them at 3:30 or 4 o'clock or 4:30 or 5, whenever folks are walking out the door, because they've already offered to help earlier in the morning and we're way downstream on some things. It's a part of the culture. Can we align? If everybody's door is open and somebody's door is closed, there's a problem. That's the point, okay? Third thing is, in all of this, is evaluation. What is it that we're going to evaluate? At the end of the day, what are we going to measure that says, job well done? At the end of the day, the way I used to say this with my staff was this: what are we going to celebrate? Okay? You accomplished this project and you took the lead on this project and it was a wonderful thing. What are we going to do to celebrate? What are we celebrating at the end of that? Well, we're celebrating the fact that we had 100 visitors at our VBS this summer. Or we celebrated the fact that we've done multiple classes in Sunday school for our middle school kids. Or we're celebrating the fact that we've got 60 kids now that have completed their interviews with the pastor and they're going to be confirmed or something like that. What do we celebrate? Because I will tell you this, healthy teams celebrate well. Healthy teams celebrate well. And you want to celebrate, you want to laugh, you want to clap and cheer. And one of the things that Greg does very well, and I'm not just sort of blowing smoke to my right, your left over here, but one of the things that Greg does very well is there is seldom a time when the staff is together in a meeting that we don't have something and someone to celebrate. And I don't just mean birthdays. I'm talking about the kinds of things that draw people more deeply into their faith in Christ and more deeply into their love for the church. So that's a big piece of that. And all of that is found in knowing exactly what it is that we're going to evaluate. So the team is aligned to that. And number two is that everyone understands how to contribute to a team win. How to contribute to a team win. One of the things that I know is true at Concordia is that when there is an all-hands-on-deck event, like a vacation Bible school, like a drive-through nativity, Advent, Christmas, kind of a live nativity thing that is an outreach to the community, and that somebody's in charge, it's never Bill Tucker. And I work full-time for that person. Doesn't matter what my responsibilities are in terms of my Sundays or my Wednesdays or my anything else. We know when Christmas is coming. We can calendar. It's almost on December 25th every year, and so we understand that the first week in Advent or so, there's this weekend where there's going to be 10,000 people on our campus. It's a pretty worthwhile project. So along about August, we're sort of reporting for duty to the person who leads the event. Let me begin to think about what you're going to ask of me to make this a great event and a great win for the team. How do we contribute to a team win? We need the leader to lead well, but we need the staff to serve well in the midst of all of that. How does that happen? Let me tell you a little team story, then I want to show you a team at work, and then Greg Stiles is going to come and speak. One of my favorite books that I've ever read on teams is a book by Phil Jackson. Now, Phil Jackson is the guy that was the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. He was coach of Chicago Bulls. Now he's with the New York Knicks and things like that. So Phil Jackson, this great Hall of Fame basketball coach. And when he took the job to be the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, a newspaper reporter asked him this question. This is in his book, Sacred Hoops. And they said, hey, Coach Jackson, what is it going to take for the Chicago Bulls to win a championship? Now, Phil Jackson had a player on that Chicago Bulls team by the name of, let me think if I can remember. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. Top basketball player in the world. Bulls not winning championships at all. Jackson comes in. He says there's two things the Chicago Bulls need to understand if they're going to win a world championship. Two things that have to happen. Number one, each player needs to learn how to love the rest of the team. We have to learn how to love each other. Now, this is a basketball coach talking about professional basketball players, but we have to learn to love each other. Number two, Michael Jordan needs to learn the value of passing the ball. Well, they surrounded Michael Jordan with guys by the name of Scottie Pippen and the rest of that crew. They won like, what, six championships? So somewhere along the line, somebody fell in love, and somewhere along the line, Michael Jordan mastered the art of passing the ball. Let me tell you what. Whether you're a Chicago Bull fan or you're just a fan of the team that you're associated with in your church, I'm going to tell you, life is better and championships are won when people love each other and they serve each other and they pass the ball. So, having said that, Greg is going to come up and talk with you, but not until...
Can you hit that light?
Yeah, so I can just turn off the light. Not until we have a chance to see this.
Basketball, you have to appreciate the Spurs and everything that they do. Ginobili kicks to the corner, movement to Green. The power heel trouble. I love all the extra pass. A beautiful penetration from Manu Ginobili and the extra pass to Danny Green. Joseph. Get out of here. Razzle-dazzle from Austin Daly. Great pass by Duncan.
That's ball movement right there. You want to talk about half-court execution? Mark that play down.
On a lob inside, Baines with the catch. Easy for Ginobili. Look at this passing. Everyone's got a spot. They fill it. Bang. Down goes the three.
It's great basketball. I'm not sure, Popovich doesn't say much sometimes in timeouts because he doesn't need to. These guys just know how to play the game of basketball.
These guys just know how to play the game. So we're going to talk about playing the game today.
Well, thank you. I think I'll grab this and run over here and try to stay out of the way. So good afternoon. I tell you, it's a real honor and pleasure to get to serve with Steve Wagner, and so I know there's not but one guy in this room, Mark Wood, that even knows who I am, and so I know you're here to see Steve, and so he's going to sit there and look good, and then he'll answer all your questions at the end because of the confusion that I'll probably create. So I want to just take just a quick step back for a second and comment on a couple of things that we kind of talked about already, but in a little more detail. Job descriptions. How many of you have a job description written down that you can put your hands on or whatever? So, good many of you. We don't have any at Concordia. And there's a reason for that, sort of. We change so much. Our jobs are always changing. I mean, I suppose a senior pastor could have one, but really his job description would say, creates a vision. Yeah, that's what the senior pastor does, creates a vision and shepherds the congregation in a staff context. Does a lot more than that, but really that's his main job on our staff, is to create the vision. And then it is my job as a chief of staff to ensure that the rest of the staff is sort of executing that vision and staying on the same sheet of music as we move ministry forward. And that's not easy all the time. So the other thing is evaluations. Who does annual evaluation? You get an annual evaluation in writing and all that. So January 2nd, 2003, I showed up for my first day on the job as Concordia's, it was called executive director then, now chief of staff. I'd been in the Army. I'm a retired Army lieutenant colonel. I sit down at my desk. I had no clue what was coming at me. None. And the first year was a struggle. I mean, if you go somewhere else in ministry, the first year is always a struggle till you kind of figure out that battle rhythm, right? So on January 2nd, first day, the business manager comes in and he lays a stack about 3 inches on my desk and says, "There you go, boss." And I said, "So what's that?" He said, "Well, those are evaluations, annual appraisals." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Okay." I said, "So let me ask you a few questions about these." I said, "We've been doing this for a long time?" He says, "Yes, sir." I'm like, "So how many of these would you say are really good?" Most of them, they're good. I said, "How many of them would you say are just awful?" None of them are awful. I say, "Okay. So how many of them are vastly different than the last year's on that same person, and the year before that, and the year before that? Or are you giving me a stack that is basically the same thing every year?" He said, "Yeah, I'd have to say I probably am." I said, "So let me ask you another question. If someone gets a really bad one, do they get fired?" "No." I said, "Well, if someone gets a really great one, do they get a promotion?" "No." "So what happens?" He goes, "Well, nothing." And I picked him up, I threw him right in the trash and said, "Don't ever do another one." I said, "Do you get a bonus for it?" "No." "So nothing's tied to it?" "No." I said, "We'll never do another one." What good is it? Yeah. But we evaluate every single day, eyeball to eyeball, teammate to teammate. We evaluate, we give feedback, we critique each other, we help each other, we love each other. And loving each other is critical. That's a choice you make, It's an emotion born out of a choice that you make, not just an emotion. You got to choose to love your teammates. If you don't choose to love them, you won't be able to be successful with them, and they won't be successful either. So my encouragement to you is choose to love your teammates, okay? I also think that, you know, I'm not telling you to get rid of your evaluations, because I know some of you wouldn't, couldn't, and you know, maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. That's just how I felt and how we did it, okay? So a lot of kind of what we say today is kind of how we kind of wander through ministry together as a team. And I'm really proud of our team, and I'll tell you, I've been the chief of staff now for this, I'm in my 13th year. It hasn't always been this cohesive, all right? And so my message to you is it takes time. It takes time to learn to love each other, to learn to trust each other, to be good leaders, but almost as important as being a good leader is being a good follower. You know, Steve talked about, you know, we're going to have an event. So VBS, so Vacation Bible School is coming up. So Nicole Carmines, who's doing a class 2 doors down right now, is our children's ministry director. She is in charge of VBS, all right? So we all work for her, including Bill Tucker, including me, including Steve, including everyone. And what that means is if Nicole needs something and Nicole asks for something, we do it. Mostly, I'm good for carrying like heavy things. I got a pretty strong back. I'm not very good at setting up the computer or doing this tech stuff or, you know, or anything else much of. But I can carry boxes from point A to point B, and so that's what I get tasked to do. And you know what? That's what I do. I carry boxes. I do what I have to do to be a good follower. You know, and by doing that, you know, I feel like I'm a great part of the team. But I also feel like that Nicole is growing as a leader. You know, we're bringing her on. We're creating our future right there by letting her lead. And Bill Tucker will, at the end of every day at VBS, we huddle together. And at the very end, when it seems like everything's done, Bill looks at Nicole and says, "Nicole, are we done for today? What do we need to do?" And if Nicole says, "No, we're done, we can go home," then we go home. If Nicole says, "Well, I need these things done before we leave," then we do those things and we huddle back together. And then when Nicole tells us we can go home for the day. Now, that's pretty cool, you know. That's a pretty cool approach. And it's out of the box. I'd encourage you to try that. Give people the power to lead. You know, Bill Woolsey was talking, you know, about authority and all that. It really ties in nicely to this. I mean, if you're going to do things the way you do them because you've always done them that way, you aren't going to get any better, maybe. I mean, you're going to get what you always got, right? If you're going to do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. But if you want to think outside the box and step out a little bit, then try it. You don't have to do anything radical or crazy like throw evaluations in the trash can. I didn't have anything to lose. I was on day one at that point. Fire me? Okay, you know, whatever. But those are some key points. So here's some of the ways that we've kind of thought outside the box over the last dozen years. Bill Tucker has been senior pastor for 1 year longer than I've been there. So he's in his 14th year and I'm in my 13th year. So a traditional, so start thinking about building your team when you're hiring somebody. There's a standard model for hiring somebody, right? You create a job description and you throw it out there, and then a bunch of people put in their resumes, right? And you sift through that, and you think, oh, this one would be good, and this one would be good, and this one would be good, and then you interview some folks, and I mean, you check references, but who's going to give you a reference that says anything other than this is Superman or Batwoman or whatever? Who's going to give a bad reference, right? Nobody, right? And people will always shine in an interview, pretty much. You'll get their best. You'll get their very best. So then you pick the person that's right for the job, right? Makes sense, yeah? Well, the way we approach it is just a little different. We look for first-round draft choices, all right? And it's worked for us. It may not work for you, but it's worked for us. So we go out there and we find someone that is really talented. We ask ourselves, what could we have this person do? What could this person do on our staff to make us better? And we really value whether or not we feel like it's kind of a gut feeling. Is this person going to fit well on our staff? Or are we throwing a hand grenade in the middle of our staff that's going to explode? You know, because it's important, you know. It's easier to choose people who are kind of in lockstep and thinking the right way sometimes than it is, you know, choosing to love someone who's a hand grenade in the middle of your staff. So we still make mistakes on this, guys. The only way you're ever going to know if you hired the right person is after they get there and they've been there for 6 months, if it works out or not. We just had to I had to let somebody go right sort of after Thanksgiving, before Christmas. It just wasn't working out. And I gathered our team together that sort of interviewed her and went through this process. I said, is there anyone who thought we'd be here today having to dismiss someone after we interviewed her? Did we think that? They're all like, no, we didn't think that. No, we didn't, you know. But it happens. We make mistakes. So the other important ingredient is you have to be able, when things don't work out, to have a tough conversation and say to somebody with love, you know, we treat people with the utmost respect and love, and we say, hey, listen, this is just not working out. You know, I feel like that maybe we need to give you the freedom to go and do something else somewhere else, because it's just, this is clearly not working out on this team. I know there's a team out there for you. You're very talented. It's just probably not a great fit on this team, you know. So without breaking someone or whatever, you have to be willing to have, you know, a tough conversation from time to time. And again, it takes time to build these teams, you know, over and over again. Question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, just as you were describing the first-round draft choice idea or whatever, where you get a really talented individual, where do you find these really talented individuals that you're
Man, best practices. Best practices. That's, yes. You probably talked to someone today, maybe. You never know. So I'll tell you a great story. So, because I love to tell stories. We could spend all of our time here with me telling you stories, right, Steve? So TJ Winters. Anybody know TJ? Our newest yeah, Mark, you know everyone I'm going to say. Anybody know? So TJ Winters is our newest pastor. He just went through the S&P program, okay? But he's been on our staff for 10 years. And so Bill Tucker had to go preach a contemporary worship service maybe, well, about 10 and a half years ago, come to think of it, at the seminary at Concordia. And so a music guy that we all know, Mark and I and Steve, named Adam Countryman, was going to put the band together, okay? So he put the band together, and we all went up there. And we were in this place where we were going to do this contemporary worship service, and TJ Winters was playing keyboards, and his girlfriend then was singing. And man, that guy could play a keyboard. Man, was he good. Well, while they were rehearsing, they came over and plopped down, and we just met him. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. I'm TJ. Well, hey, I'm Greg, Bill. You know, we just start talking. Well, man, you play keyboards, man. What else do you do? He goes, well, you know, I've worked for CompUSA fixing computers, and I set up networks for people in their homes, and I'm kind of an IT techie guy, and I'm moving to San Antonio, I think. Really? What you gonna do? Well, I got an application in with the bank. I think I'll probably start off as a teller in the bank, but you know, I want to play some music with Adam. I want to come to I want to come to your church probably, but you know, well, Bill says, well, what's bank gonna pay you? He says, oh, this much. And Bill says, well, man, is your girlfriend going to move too? Well, yeah, we're going to get engaged. She doesn't know that yet. Hopefully she says yes, and she's going to move down, you know. And so Bill says, well, you know, and this didn't all happen right on the spot, but over a course of a week or so through some conversation, Bill says, well, what if we were to pay you what the bank was going to pay you? Would you come work on our staff? Sure. And he started off as I'm not big on job titles either, because they change so rapidly. But he started off as just a tech support guy, all right, troubleshooting computer problems. And over the course of a couple years, he then I think he went to IT guy next. That was his title, IT guy. And then he was the director of IT. And then he became director of worship, and now he is pastor of worship. In 10 years, he's had like 5 or 6 titles. So you never know who you're talking to. You just got to talk to him a little bit. I mean, you know, it's sort of like, you know, that guy who's sitting in the pew that has so much to offer, and they come in and they get fed on Sunday morning, and then they leave, and you don't know what they do really. And you know, as it turns out, they've got more to offer than you ever imagined. It just requires conversation. You get a sense of it. Well, we hired Rachel too. They did get married, and their 4th kid's on the way, now. So it's worked out great. Rachel's a stay-at-home mom now, and then TJ's our pastor of worship. A lot of our folks are that way. Joy, how many of y'all been to Joy's? Any of Joy's sessions? Joy is so awesome. She came out here to marry one of our school teachers, left Hollywood where she had worked for Extreme Makeover and Hollywood Squares, doing tech stuff and whatever else. She's our director of public relations and marketing, and does video stuff, and is just ultra talented. And we didn't really need that, but man, we need that talent, because man, she's been some places and done some things, and so we found a place for her. And she started off just doing staff support stuff, doing graphic work for the slides on Sunday morning, and now she's a senior director. You just got to find them, and you just have to find the talent and recognize the #1 draft choices. And none of y'all can have any of those people on my staff, all right? So you stay away from them, because they're awesome. Roll it, next slide. So John Wooden, great coach here, says don't try to be better than anybody else. Just be as good as you can be. And that's all we try to do. And we try to cross-train each other. We try to jump in and do whatever's needed whenever it's needed. All right? We just work together, and if, I don't know how many times, if I mean, I feel like I'm pretty approachable. I mean, they ask me to, will you go over to the other building? Sunday morning rolls around, hey, can you go over there and get me some batteries? Yeah, sure. I'll do whatever. And they know that, if the trash needs emptying, if something needs doing, Steve will do it, I'll do it, Bill Tucker will do it. Bill brings in trash from out in the parking lot when he's walking from his car and throws it in the trash can. I mean, he's constantly, doing things like that to keep things. It's not, no one's better than anyone else. We just do the best we can do, right? And then, we give people opportunity to grow. We give them opportunities to lead. We give people opportunities to be good followers, and then pretty soon, you got a pretty tight group, and you love each other, and you laugh, and you have fun. Roll the next one. Okay, so communications. See, he knew, he read my mind. We ain't even been together that long.
I'm telling you, it's scary, isn't it?
So, communication is the most critical thing I think that we do. And communication, the vision comes from the top down, but it also from the bottom up. Communication's a two-way street. So where do the best ideas come from? Oftentimes not from the top down, because the senior pastor and the chief of staff and the associate pastors are always the last one to know things. And we don't really know how kids get checked in to Kids Praise on Sunday morning. But the volunteer down there that's just here volunteering for a couple hours on Sunday morning, they do. They know exactly how it works, and they got 10 great ideas on how to make it better. So if you want to improve something and and get better and be a better team, listen to those people, because they know. They know what the problems are. They know what the issues are. They know why things are the way they are. And everyone's standard answer for why we do it that way is, well, because Pastor said, or well, because we've just always done it that way, right? Like Bill Woolsey said. And that's so true. So communicate both ways. The other way to be the most cohesive and great team is to develop a plan and execute the plan. Do not change the plan. Execute the plan. All right? The time to change the plan is next time, not in the middle. Because a lot of people have great ideas right in the middle of something too. So I used to tell my kids, hey, my son would come to me and say, hey, we got a date on Friday night. That'd be okay, Dad? Yeah, Tyler, that'd be fine. Where are you going to go? He'd say, well, we go to the football game and then maybe to the Pizza Hut, grab some pizza. I said, so you're going to go straight to the football game and then to the Pizza Hut and then come home? Yes, sir. I said, okay. What time are you going to be home, Tyler? Well, Dad, I should be home by 11, if that's all right. Yeah, that'll be fine, Tyler. But so then I would say, Tyler, you're going to go from here, and you're going to go to the football game, and then you and this girl are going to go to Pizza Hut, and then you're going to come straight home. Yeah? He'd say, yeah, Dad. I'd say, okay, so whose plan is that? He'd say, well, that's my plan. And I would say, great, execute that plan. Do not change that plan. Do not go to Las Palapas. Go to Pizza Hut like you told me. And if you even think about changing that plan, you better call me on the telephone, because if I find out you changed your plan, we're going to have troubles. All right, Dad. One night I get a call. Hey, Dad, yeah, it's Tyler. Man, you know, everybody's not going to Pizza Hut, man. They're going to Las Palapas, Dad. And, you know, I'm like, Tyler, is that executing the plan? I'll see you at 11, Dad. I ended up letting him go to Las Palapas, but, you know, he called me. And so, you know, but, so you after a big event, after you create a plan and execute the plan, then you celebrate, you debrief it. You debrief it and you ask, what did we do really well? And what could we have done better? And what do we need to change to make it better for next time? All right? Then you celebrate it. Hey, man, great job, everybody. Don't ever miss an opportunity to celebrate, pat your team on the back. All right? It's the greatest thing in the world. I have this phenomenon, this theory, that if you want your congregation to do something in a big way, what do you have to do? There's only one thing you have to do to get your whole congregation, the vast majority of them, to do something, anything you ask. What do you want? What do you do? Nah, give them a T-shirt. Oh. Give them a free T-shirt. They will run through a wall for you. I promise you. I promise. You hold that thing up, you pastors, you hold that thing up and say, look here. You see this? I'll give you one for free if you'll volunteer at the church picnic next weekend, or you bring something, you get one of these. How about it? They'll fly off the shelf. People and everybody will come, and everybody will wear your T-shirt. You give them a T-shirt, and they'll do it. But that's celebrating it, though.
Great.
Yeah?
Can I just say one thing about
please
that?
do.
Yeah. Lyle Schaller, some of you remember, that's a blast from the past kind of a name, but Schaller used to talk about choir robes and name tags. And he said, as soon as you can get a name tag on somebody or a choir robe on somebody, they'll feel like you're a part of the team. Why? Because they're wearing the uniform. And that's a part of the genius of the T-shirt. Everybody gets to wear the same uniform, and everybody feels like they're on the
uglier
team.
the better, man. Lime, stinking green. The loudest, ugliest things, and people wear them all over town. You put your church's name on the front. We get our elders, and they'll sponsor them. So we get them, you know, you tell your elders, hey, listen, if you got a company, you want to sponsor this, $100, and we'll put your company logo on the back. Boom, man, it's free. Free T-shirts right there. You give them to your team. You give them to all your congregation, they'll move a mountain for you. I promise you. It's as simple as that. It's easy. Go to the next one. So,
Coffee pot.
So here's a good thing. Where's your coffee pot in your office? Where's the coffee pot at? Come on, somebody. Where's your coffee pot?
Teacher's working.
You need to get a coffee pot. Teacher's workroom. That's your first step. Your easy fix. So here's the thing. So the senior leaders, the senior pastors are really busy, and everyone's really busy. But what you want people busy, but you don't want them busy building smokestacks around themselves and doing this, right? You want them to open up. So on our second floor of our admin building, so Bill Tucker's office is in a corner and my office is in the other corner, and there's a little room between us, and the doors, they go all the way through, so I can look like this and see Bill in his office, and he can look at me. The only coffee pot in the whole upstairs is in that room between us. So everyone that wants coffee, hot chocolate, tea has to come to that room and come through our offices. Doors are always open. Steve told you that. One time about 10 years ago, we had a guy on our staff that constantly had his door closed, and I kept telling him, leave your door open, leave your door open, leave your door open. Then one day I got tired of telling him that, and I stuck my head in and I said, if your door is closed again, I'll have maintenance take it off of the hinges and haul it out of here, and you will not have a door. And it never closed again. It was always open. And I was serious. I would have done that. You only know me a little bit. Mark will tell you I'd have done that, yeah? So everyone has to come through. And you know how many conversations I get to have with our staff every day? A ton, because everyone drinks coffee. And it's great because I get to say, how was your weekend? you guys go to that movie? What'd you do, you know? And hey, how we doing on, you know, on VBS? Are we doing all right? What do we need? Do we need anything special? Can I help you? You need something? It's great conversation. It's great team building. It's great relationship building. So be strategic about little things like that. You know, if the coffee room, if the teacher's workroom is a great place because people go there a lot, then maybe that's fine. But if you can do it, if you put it right outside your door even if you just take and put a desk or a little stand outside your door, put a Keurig machine and buy the coffee. Buy a whole bunch of stuff. It's worth every dime of it because people will come there and they will congregate there. You know, it's like that's where everybody gets their information, at the water cooler, right? Well, do it at the coffee pot. And then the all hands on decks thing, we have events every year, many of them that are all hands on deck. And our staff understands that means you don't take vacation and you're there and you work for whoever's in charge of the event. You are there until the end. And those are all hands on deck events. And all I have to say is, this is an all hands on deck event. People get it. They're like, all right, super, we're all there. And Nicole is in charge, Joy is in charge, TJ is in charge, whoever's in charge is in charge. And we don't leave, we do what they say. And that works for us, you know. And it builds leadership too. It creates leadership down below the senior pastor and the senior staff level that really is building people up, you know. We're creating an exit strategy for the older guys, and we don't even know it. We're doing it naturally. So when we walk out and retire one of these days, there are other people ready to step right in. And it's really great, all right? So alignment, we've talked about a lot of this sort of, you know, match personal strengths with missional needs. That doesn't necessarily mean what you're hired for, you know? And it doesn't, and maybe we don't have, you know, maybe we have to learn something new, maybe, you know, and that could be anybody. So don't be afraid to move people around. Most of our senior directors have had 3 or 4 or 5 different jobs. You know, like Joy and TJ, most of our staff is that way. Most of them. We move them around. When we think, you know, we need somebody to do this, do we have anyone on staff that can do that? You know, because sometimes it's, you know, you can replace, well, a good example would be TJ Winters. And so TJ is a gifted keyboard player, worship leader, band leader. He's also gifted with computers. So we now have the dilemma of, does he lead worship and run that ministry, or is he going to run our online ministry and do rebroadcasts, and we're going to start doing, you know, the online worship and stuff? Well, so what we have to figure out is which one's tougher to find. Is it tougher to find someone to lead worship, or is it tougher to find someone to lead, you know, online ministry? Well, and for right now, it's tougher for us to find someone to lead worship. You know, that's just tough, you know, to find someone that talented out there. And he's a keyboard player to boot. You can find guitarists pretty much, but keyboard players are tougher to come by. So he's gonna hang out, and he's gonna be the senior. He's gonna be the pastor of worship for now. If somebody else comes along that can play the piano and don't even have to be a pastor, if someone else comes along that can do that, we snatch him up, he might just move because we know he has talents elsewhere too. He can definitely do the online and the technical stuff, and it's probably really important to have a pastor doing that. So, you know, we'll just see. We'll just see how it goes. But don't be afraid to move people around, and again, tear down those smokestacks. And sometimes those are tough conversations. You know, yes, sir.
At what point do you decide between volunteer, part-time, and full-time? Like when you're going to bring somebody on at that level? If you have a really good volunteer, at what point do you bring them on to part-time, and part-time to full-time?
Well,
I know that's really big, but
yeah, it's tough because some of that, I mean, that's driven by probably a lot of different things. I mean, you know, budget might drive that in a lot of cases. You know, do we have it in our budget, or do we need it? And it probably depends on the volunteer. I mean, sometimes, you know, the volunteer may come in and say, you know, we have cases. We have a case right now where we've had a committed volunteer who has been at our church for a very long time, who has said, hey, I'm selling my businesses, and you know, I'd love to work in the church, and we can't afford not to hire this guy. I mean, he's just that good. He brings such value to our staff. So he kind of pushed our hand in that case. But if he hadn't pushed our hand, we probably wouldn't have pushed his hand either, because he's a successful businessman as well. And so it's really sort of a balanced thing, but I would say don't be afraid to do that. You know, don't be afraid to jump in there. And there are probably a lot of, probably on an individual basis, depends on, you know, if it's right and you've got the budget to do it, and that's your guy or gal, then do it. Pull the trigger and see. But beware. Because when you do that, if you pull in a congregation member to work on your staff full time and it goes poorly, you have created a firestorm. You know, there's no great exit strategy for that, okay? Because those people in a lot of cases have been there longer than you, and they got lots of friends and lots of relatives, and you got to be real careful in doing that. You know, our full-time staff, we require to join the church. Sometimes it's better if we don't hire congregation members, because that kind of turns into a Price is Right scenario, you know, or a Wheel of Fortune scenario. Once you buy a prize that's yours to keep, you know, you're gonna be stuck. You're gonna have that. Now, maybe that isn't the case. Maybe they're a great person. That's why I say you just got to be careful and feel your way through that. But understand what you're doing before you pull the trigger, because you could create a real issue for yourself by doing that. Maybe not. Maybe not. I hope not. It's worked out well for us in many, many cases. It has worked out poorly for us as well.
Are there certain positions that you pull from outside always, or?
No, I wouldn't say there is. I wouldn't say there is. And there are also, other than pastors, you know, there are no positions that we would always pull from inside either. Our school principal right now is not Lutheran trained. She is a retired public school principal that stood up 3 elementary schools in San Antonio, and she was a superstar principal in the public school system. And we felt like she was the right one to come in and lead our school because of her background and her knowledge, and she's been fantastic. And you know, quite frankly, there are a lot of folks that frown on that, saying, "Well, you know, she's not a Lutheran educator." No, but she's an educator, and she, you know, and the superintendent of schools in San Antonio didn't ask her to stand up 3 schools, you know, as they were being built for nothing. So there's a first-round draft choice. Are you going to pass on her because she's not a Lutheran educator? You know, we've sent her to colloquy. We can kind of fix that. But you know, the other thing is you know, we're in competition with a lot of other schools out there. You've got to be better than the next school. Schools are a tough issue. You know, you've got to be better. Lots of our teachers are Lutheran educators. Lots of them. Some of them aren't, because I can't find them. You know, where do you find a math teacher over the summer that's looking for a job, or where do you find a science teacher or something? Sometimes you got to use what you have, right? So we're not afraid to do that, though. You know, our principal, I stand right behind that one, because that's worked out really well for us. And our school has grown over last year. This year, we're grown, and we're projecting to grow again next year and have more students. So it's a tough one. Yes, ma'am.
But as long as you're talking about that, how does the rest of the staff feel about that?
Well, I don't know. You know, I'm sure there are some that disagree with that, but you know, at the end of the day, I think she's been on board now. This is her 5th year, and I think everybody loves her now. And there were grumblings in the beginning, and you know, but there again, they're gonna be, you know, and you just have to, you know, at some point you're either on the train or you're not on the train, right? And so people just got to get on board and get on the train. And those are some tough conversations, and you got to have them with love, and you got to treat that very gently. But it can be done. You can certainly get through that. We have next. So train the trainer is just simply what we've been talking about. You know, jump in and do jobs. You know, learn different jobs and different skills. Don't be afraid to move people around and ask people to jump out of their comfort zone and help in some other area of ministry. You know, and you might discover, you know, a spiritual gift that someone didn't even know they had. You know, I'm still waiting to find my spiritual gift. You know, sleeping, frankly, is one of my spiritual gifts. I am a gifted sleeper, man. I can sleep. Don't be afraid to grow and change. And it's just like Sally McBee, like we talked about our principal. You know, you could say, well, maybe we shouldn't do that because some people might not like it. Well, are we gonna bring in, you know, our second or third choice because we always have done it that way, or are we gonna grow and change?
Did I hear you say earlier that that everyone on your staff is a member of your church?
Full-time, yeah.
Yeah.
Full-time people, yeah. That's one of our requirements.
Yeah.
We tell them, listen.
So she would be a member of your church?
She is. And you know what? So when we went to hire her, she had been visiting our church but was not a member. And so we encouraged her to decide if she was going to be a member, and then we would decide on the principal job, and she decided she would be a member. She has joined. Her husband is now an elder. Now, in our elders, we have over 200, right at around 200 of them. They are not a decision-making body, okay? We have a church council that is 9 guys that are our decision makers. Our elders are the spiritual leaders in our church, the men who are the spiritual leaders. And they're a fantastic slice of our congregation. And Pastor Tucker, you know, bounces things off of them and uses them as a sounding board, and then he charges them to go out and take ownership of the programs and the ministries that we're doing, and volunteer and lead like leaders lead, right? Yeah, try to keep things fresh, and creating the exit strategy is sort of like, you know, creating great leaders and great followers below you and let them lead. Don't, you know, people are going to make mistakes. You just, you know what, we all do. None of us are going to get through life without making mistakes. So allow people to make some mistakes. It's okay. It's all right. You can recover from it, you know. And then just be creative and think outside the box. And we are here to help anybody and tell you know, I'll tell anybody what I think. And again, some of this might be totally, you know, you can't do it, but I think you can build a good team. It takes time, it takes effort, and you got to love each other. That's the thing. You got to love. Sometimes you got to love each other enough to move them along and say, listen, it's not working out here. Yes, sir.
When you talked about interviewing, I heard you say that are team interviews. Can you talk about the process of when you're bringing somebody in? I'll use a school as an example, a new teacher. How does that interview take place?
Yeah, lots of times we start off on a Skype or a FaceTime or GoToMeeting on the internet. So if we're interviewing a teacher, say in Carson City, Nevada, and we'll have the principal will be in there, and the principal probably she'll have the assistant principal and a couple of teachers, you know, and probably some teachers that if we're thinking about hiring a second grade teacher, for example, maybe it's and say we need a coach, say we need a second grade teacher who could also maybe coach a little, right? So then maybe we would have the other second grade teacher and then someone from the athletic department sit. And they would just ask questions. And again, I don't tell you know, the principal and them who to hire. They basically come to us, they come to Bill and myself and say, we've interviewed these people and this is where we stack them up. This is who we'd like to hire. And Bill would say, okay, so you've picked this one young lady that you want to hire. Yes. Okay. Are you bringing her in here? Yes. Good. I want to interview with her. So then Bill Tucker will interview with her, and you know, probably 99 times out of 100, it's great. And he says, super. Have at it. You know, and again, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't get really involved. I have not interviewed a teacher in years. I'll interview principals, but not the teachers. The principal does that, and you know, that's who, you know, she's going to have to work with, and so it's only fair that her team gets to interview, right? And again, that's growing up leaders and letting them lead. Sometimes it doesn't work out, you know. Sometimes they make a mistake, just like we do. I mean, you know, and sometimes it does work out, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's all right too. You know, we keep trying until we get it right. Yes,
can I just say, can I respond to one thing, Ray, in your question? I'm kind of the new kid on the block here, but one of the things that I didn't realize as a senior pastor at Prince of Peace in Carrollton was that in these searches, that you really want to make them global, not just not citywide or state or something like that. You want to make them global. And what we were talking about Skype interviews. Yeah. The most recent staff interview that we did was with someone in Germany, You say, well, now how do you get connected to that? You get connected to that through the networks of missionaries and other people who are, because those networks are very fluid in many instances, and there are some really gifted people who are moving through those networks. So it's, what I'm discovering is that global searches are really simpler than I would have ever imagined them to be. And with the technology that we have now, you really want to think about what does the world have to offer in terms of people who are ready to serve in this place.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a take on his question as well. If you were looking for a principal, how would you start that process? Would the teachers be doing that?
No, probably Bill and myself, and there would be a case where we might, for someone in such a senior leadership, we might bring the president of the congregation in and let him sit on that as well. But probably not teachers initially, but then I think probably when we hired Sally, it was probably just me and Bill at that point. And then we had kind of an icebreaker where we invited the teachers all to kind of meet. And I know that Bill then gathered all the teachers together and said, okay, so we had this icebreaker and you guys got to meet this Sally McBee. We are thinking about hiring her to be our next principal. Give me your feedback. So we take feedback from the team, and it was very positive. I mean, everybody was like, wow, she just knows so much. It's unbelievable. You know, it's great and whatever. So, and it seemed to work out. But yeah, we do get feedback from them, because again, that's who knows. I mean, you know, we're not educators per se. That's who knows. So
yeah, we've got about 5 minutes of time left, so there's some time for questions, please.
You both mentioned that you didn't have the job descriptions, and then you both mentioned a couple case things that I think both of them were all hands-on-deck situations. So I was just looking for a little bit of clarity, because while obviously the collaborative nature of teamwork is commendable and awesome, I assume you have to have some sort of boundaries. I mean, I couldn't say, we don't have a bulletin this Sunday because somebody asked the church secretary to shovel snow, or
it'd be helpful if you didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have. There's still.
Well,
assuming you have to have some kind of.
So when we refer to all hands on deck, we're talking about bigger, larger events. Okay. VBS, you know, Easter Sunday morning, perhaps. Concordia Fest, which is our big church picnic. So these are extra large events that we're going to put on as outreach to the community, or you know, or just a large event in our church. Like if we run a conference like this would be an all hands on deck. All right, everybody's going to have a job. That's a whole different discussion. But essentially, whoever's in charge of that event is going to task out everybody to do jobs. All right, and they're going to have checklists as we approach the event, and they're going to check off their checklist of things that need to be done and things that are done, and they're going to be tasking people to do things for them. And then everyone, for example, here, everyone would have an assigned place to be and job to do, right? So my job might be, you know, serving Mexican food at lunch today. I'll don the gloves and serve you food with a smile, you know, and that might be mine and Steve's job, you know. But so that just means everybody's expected to be here, you know. What that means is okay, because it's VBS. That's the children's ministry, and so you got it. We're going home, and you know, we'll see you Monday morning when that comes. We don't do that. Okay, we're a team, and we all pull together. Just because right now Nicole Carmines is in charge of VBS, she needs our help, because in a month we're going to have Concordia Fest, and Joy Hammond's going to be in charge. So then Nicole's not going to say, well, you know, this is not my event, so good luck with it, and I hope it goes well for you. Now that's where you get that's where the silos are built right there, folks. All hands on deck just means it's one team in mission and ministry. One team. We all pitch in, and no one takes vacation, and no one leaves. You know, as we build up to that event a few days before and the days of the event, nobody goes home until we all go home. You know, we're there. Yeah. We come. Yeah. We work hard together, and we play hard together.
And it's scalable too. It's scalable. There's 4 a year, and we know a year in advance when those are coming. So it's not like all of a sudden, hey, I was planning this trip to wherever. And if there's an emergency, there's an emergency. We get it, you know, we cover for each other in that regard. But otherwise, there's 4 a year, and
Right.
it's all hands on deck.
Is that true for your teaching staff as well? Your whole school on deck those days? Or is that,
You
or
know
is there
what?
delineation with your church staff?
Sometimes it varies a little bit, sometimes depending on what's going on in their world, but primarily I'm talking about the church staff.
Okay.
But there are, some of our biggest volunteers are on our teaching staff, and you know what, the principal expects them to be there and be right alongside of us most of the time, so, yeah. Yes, sir?
Considered the idea of, in terms of compensation, task-based multipliers, where when people are rising above and beyond regularly, providing a bonus or additional pay for additional work.
Yeah, we do that actually, and what
So you don't think that's a killer of incentive, or is that a motivator?
No, here's how it works for us. So every year, our senior pastor, Bill Tucker, asks our church council for the ability to give bonuses. Everyone gets a bonus. Typically. We've been blessed, so for the last, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years, we've been able to give bonuses, okay? The directors rate their people and figure out who their top performers are, and it's performance-based, you know, and everybody knows this. And so they figure out who their top ones are, and nobody knows what anyone else got for a bonus, say. So like me and Bill are the only ones that know about these bonuses, okay? So then at the end of the year, we build into the budget, so that then we would ask the voters for example, this year we got a 3% cost of living increase, everybody on staff, okay? And then we put money in the budget to do what we call salary adjustments for those superstars that are performing, you know, to the senior pastor and I and the executive pastor, Pastor McIntosh, put our heads together and say, okay, who are the superstars that we just can't live without? Who's worked the hardest, who's given us the value, and we call them in individually and we adjust their salaries up.
And what's the byproduct of that? Is it an incentive, or is it an incentive to gripe and?
No, because you know what, honestly, I don't think, we do it in a way where I'm not, unless you got one, you wouldn't know. We just say, what we would say to you is, hey, you're doing a great job, and we feel like we are underpaying you, so we're adjusting your salary above and beyond the 3%, you know, and that's the way we do it, and we don't advertise it, but we thank them privately, we celebrate them privately, so that we don't create some divisive, you know, tool there. That's kind of how we do it. All right?
And to answer your question, we'll let you go in 10 seconds. To answer your question, it doesn't de-incentivize. Is that a word? You understand? It doesn't take the incentive out of
my question.
But I don't know of anybody that's on the staff that they'd say, I'm here just for the income. You know, that's not the deal either.
We have some that'll say, I'm here so I don't get fined.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.